And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, joining me at this time, he is the 177th overall pick in the 1990 NHL entry draft by the Washington Capitals and spent 9 seasons with the Capitals playing in 570 games and was a member of the 1997-98 team that went to the Stanley Cup Final, defenseman Ken Klee. Ken, thank you so much for joining me for this opportunity to reflect on the 97-98 season of the Capitals.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to just hop right into it. So after the 96-97 season concluded, both owner Abe Pullen and team president Dick Patrick decided it was time for a change. As a result, coach Jim Schoenfeld was fired and general manager David Poile did not have his contract renewed. What were your thoughts on these decisions?
It's obviously a little surprising. Always when people lose their job, you feel a little bad and a little responsible. I mean, I don't think we kind of finished that year the way we would have liked to, but we also know it's pro sports, and I was still young in the game then, so I didn't realize how often it happened. But when you first get into it, you think, oh, you read about trades and you hear about people getting fired, but until you actually live it, it's a little different.
And then after an extensive search, the Capitals then hired Ron Wilson as their new coach and George McPhee as general manager. What were your initial thoughts of these hires?
Well, I had George actually. He was my agent for a brief time, for about 3 or 4 months in the summer before I turned pro after I had blown my knee out. He was a former Bowling Green graduate. And so my coach there said, hey, this guy's an agent. He won the Hobie Baker. He's obviously a Bowling Green alumni. So I actually had him and I knew him a little bit, which so I thought it was pretty exciting, pretty cool. I didn't really know anything about Ron Wilson other than I think maybe he had coached at Anaheim at that point already. But obviously, with you're going to have a new group, new leadership, new kind of thing. So it puts you on edge. That as a player, you're going to have to come prove yourself to this new GM and this new coach both. So it definitely it puts the team on edge when they do make those kind of changes. You don't have the comfortability of, okay, I know this coach, I know what he wants from me. Now you have to figure out, what does the new coach need from you.
And you mentioned being put on edge. How was heading into training camp for that season? What was that experience like, and how different was it from past training camps with the Capitals?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, Shoney, scared the death out of me. He was notorious for going after young players and making sure that they were the hardest workers on the ice, making sure they were, sharp as a tack every time they touched the ice. And it was a lot. It was a mental strain every day when you went to the rink with him. But I certainly appreciate everything he did for me. I mean, I loved Shoney. I loved his no nonsense. He told you right away how he was feeling about you at that day or at that time in a game or whatever it was. So I certainly loved playing for Shoney. But like I said, just coming in for a new coach, you're just trying to figure out, okay, where does this coach, what does he need from me? Hopefully he can see me as a valuable asset and figure out the best way to use me to help the team win.
So the season started on October 1st, 97, in Toronto against the Maple Leafs. In this game, Bill Ranford went in as the number one goalie, but was injured early in the game. Olaf Kolzig came in, and from this point on, he never looked back. What were your thoughts on this moment and the season Kolzig eventually had?
I think that just I had played with Oli obviously before we were on the same Calder Cup winning team. I knew he was an outstanding goalie. I knew if he got the opportunity to become a number one, he would. I think the year previous when we had made the big trade for Billy, Adam Oates, and Rick Tocchet, I think it kind of came in a little off edge, I guess. And then, when Ole had the chance to take the reins, I think at first he was like, hey, I'm just good with being in the NHL and all that. But then I think when he really got the chance, he obviously made the most of it. He was phenomenal, and he was phenomenal for us that year as well as, a number of years after that.
Yeah, and he earned a All-Star appearance from it, and he also got to represent Germany, which we'll talk about that one a little later when we get to that part. After missing the season opener due to a contract negotiation, Peter Bondra returned to the team for the home opener and scored the first two goals of what would be 52 for that season, tying him for first place in the league that year. How much of an impact player was Bondra for the Capitals that season?
No, I mean, he was phenomenal. I mean, anytime you can get a 50 goal score on any team, I mean, I think it speaks for itself. He was a guy that when we needed a goal, I mean, he was a guy that could be counted on. He was a natural goal scorer. He wanted to score goals. He wanted to score every game. You can't put enough of a premium, I don't think, on those type of players who not only expect themselves to score, they put pressure on themselves to score, night in and night out.
And then, obviously, shortly after Bondra returned, Sergei Gonchar ended his holdout because he was a restricted free agent, signed a new contract, and returned to the team. This actually gave the Capitals 8 defensemen and created unique opportunities, not just for you, but also for Phil Housley, as you both actually played offense due to injuries and suspensions to the forward group. What was that like for you to play offense? And I should note that November 12th, specifically of 97, the Capitals offense burst onto the scene in Pittsburgh, defeating the Penguins 4-1. Because after he scored his first period, Peter Bondra, Ken Klee, Adam Oates, and Phil Housley, both of which you and Phil were playing offense that game, scored to propel the Capitals to the victory.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of the deal. I had experienced it a little bit the year before when Shoney came to me and said, listen, I've got 8D here, and I want to keep you, but could you play wing? And I said, I can do whatever you need me to do. I want to stay in the NHL. That was my mindset anyway to help the team win. I knew obviously I was a defensive defenseman, but also if they wanted me to play on the wing and get pucks in, get pucks out, get pucks in, be physical, get pucks to the net when I had a chance. I would do whatever it took to. It's your job. You gotta. That's the kind of mindset I think you need to have. People ask me how I had a long career. It was because I tried to figure out what the coach or what the team needed from me and try to do that as best as I could.
And there's a great quote that I was able to pull from that game, post game, and it's from Phil Housley, and it says, "Sometimes it's a relief to play forward because if you make a mistake, you're not the last guy back there, so you can try things you normally don't do on defense." How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how he's game. I would say he's definitely a highly skilled, unbelievable defender, but with a huge offensive flair. So I agree with him. I mean, it's nice when if you lose the puck or get stripped or something. There's not just the goalie behind you. You still have defenders behind you, and you have other players. So it definitely makes it a little easier. It just gives you a chance to kind of play a little more free.
So there was some incidents that took place in November of 97. One had Chris Simons suspended for allegedly using racial slurs toward Edmonton Oilers forward Mike Greer, and Craig Berube being suspended for allegedly using a racially offensive comment towards Florida Panthers rookie Peter Worrell. This was actually a very interesting time as this became the first time players in the NHL were suspended for such actions. And a huge reason for that was because this was the first season the NHL was sending players to the Olympics. When these incidents and suspensions happened, what did you as a team do to both rally around Simon and Berube, but also to make sure incidents like this did not happen again?
I don't really recall exactly, but I mean, it's one of those things where it's a hockey game. There's a lot of emotion, a lot of things going on. I don't think things were ever personal. I mean, both those guys were, you know, Chief is obviously a great guy. Craig Berube, who's still coaching today in the NHL, and Cy was a great teammate as well. I mean, I don't think any of those things were just personal. I just think it was at the time things might have been said that were inappropriate, but it was just kind of the way things were back then. So it wasn't as I don't know as major of a news story as it would be like today, where things like that aren't tolerated at all, and it was that sort of thing. So it was things that happened, and we dealt with it and moved on. That was the best way for us to go about it.
And what were some of the biggest lessons you took out of this, and what left the biggest mark on you from these incidents and the diversity training the team had to go through?
Well, I think it just as over time. I mean, I think sports is a way of unifying people, and it's all colors, races, sexes, everything. And to me, that's I think I always knew that, but I mean that kind of hammered it home to me that sports is an area where we just don't need that sort of thing to be involved, and definitely that's where the game has moved, which is it's everyone's better for it.
So on November 26, 1997, the Capitals played their final game at US Airways Arena, formerly known as, or also known as, the Capitol Center. This game was against the Montreal Canadiens and also was the game where Rod Langway's number was retired to the rafters as part of the ceremonies of the final game there. Unfortunately for the Capitals, not only did they fall to the Canadiens, it was also not televised as the Washington Wizards of the NBA were on HTS that night. What was it like playing in that game and being part of the last Capitals game at that venue, but then also knowing that no one outside of those in attendance didn't get to see the game?
Yeah, see that would be a thing. I don't really recall that part. Obviously, I remember retiring Rockets jersey. He was a phenomenal player. When I first signed, turned pro, he was around, and still playing. So I got to know him a little bit then, which a tremendous player, tremendous person. But I think it was more just excitement to get to the new building. I mean, that's really what I remember from that is, yes, it was kind of the closing of one rink, but for me, I think it was just the excitement that not only I, but our whole team had of getting to move to a new arena. We had done a little site visit, and I know our whole group was really excited to get there.
What are some of your fondest memories of the old Capitol Center?
Um, just little things that when I tell people they can't believe, like, the Zamboni room was closed. So, we had a couple of guys who still smoked cigarettes, so they'd be in between periods smoking cigarettes, by the Zamboni. And I think one time, we came in the rink and I forget if it was Kelly Miller or Callie Johansson or somebody kind of knocked their skate over and a little mouse came running out of it. So, I mean, it's just things that you have with an old building. I mean, I think those are a couple of the things that I remember about it. I remember it was kind of dark and obviously it was an older building. So, I guess those would be a couple of, just funny kind of stories that I remember about the place.
You mentioned the players smoking. One of the most iconic photos is Ali Afraidy with a cigarette in one hand and a beer in another, and it's like an intermission.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
There you go.
December 5th, 1997, the Capitals made their MCI Center, now Capital One Arena, debut with a 3-2 overtime victory over the Florida Panthers. What were your first impressions of the new arena?
Oh, it was just awesome. I mean, it was so exciting to everything was shiny, everything was new. New locker room, new carpet, new, everything that we had there, I think was just awesome. So it was just really a cool place to come to a brand new building was just, super exciting.
On January 25th, 1998, the Capitals debuted a brand new alternate jersey against the Boston Bruins. This marked the first time in franchise history that the Capitals would have an alternate jersey. What were your initial thoughts on it, and how was it received with the rest of the players?
Was it the
It's the
black with
Black
the
Dome
capital on it?
jersey.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
the
no, it
Black
was
Dome.
great. I mean, my kids love that jersey. They still have it. One of my kids wore it snowboarding last year, so it's still a really cool looking jersey, and it's just a really neat thing. I think back then, we weren't doing those sort of things of having a third jersey or an alternate jersey. So I think it was just kind of a cool thing.
And then, of course, obviously, a few years later, the Black Dome jersey would become the home jersey for the Capitals, replacing the Blue Eagle, which leads me to this next question. Of the three jerseys the Capitals wore that season, the White Eagle, the Blue Eagle, and the Black Dome, which one was your favorite?
I mean, maybe the black dome, but I still have the white Eagle jersey with the Stanley Cup patch. I have it down in my basement, memorialized, kind of hung up. So it's pretty cool thing, just to see those jerseys and even to see the difference of the red, white, and blue that I started with. Like my first NHL jersey is, I think they've done a good job, just really, having different looks for different times and different eras. And when we went back for that 50th anniversary, it was really cool to see all the different sweaters.
So, my favorite, I know this isn't about me, but my favorite is the Blue Eagle.
Yeah.
I would love to see the Blue Eagle come back 100%. Um, During the 97-98 season, three members of the Capitals reached the 1,000 point plateau. They were Adam Oates, Phil Housley, and Dale Hunter. This also marked the first and only time three players from the same team reached the 1,000 point plateau in the same season. What was it like seeing these three reach this milestone? And of the three, who were you the happiest for?
It's amazing. Anytime, I feel like a lot of my time playing for the Caps, I played with, Hall of Fame type players and guys that were just had unbelievable careers, unbelievable point production. I think probably, Dale Hunter, I would be maybe the happiest for. I mean, Adam Oates is obviously super skilled. I mean, it was just kind of a matter of time for him. He was going to figure out a way to put points up. Same with Howie. He was super skilled and played in an era where there was a lot of points being put up. But for a guy like Dale Hunter to get 1,000 points and fight as much as he did and play as hard as he did and as gritty as he did, It was just, it's pretty amazing when you see that kind of player who, you know, plays with that kind of physical intensity, but yet puts up points is pretty amazing.
Yeah, Dale Hunter is the only player in NHL history with over 3,000 penalty minutes and 1,000 points.
Yeah.
So, um, moving further, for the Olympics, as I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons why the NHL put in that like diversity policy and stuff like that. This was the first time the NHL allowed its players to go to the games in Nagano, Japan. For the Capitals, Ron Wilson was named coach for Team USA. Kalle Johansson was named captain for Team Sweden. Peter Bondar and Richard Zednik were named to Team Slovakia. Olaf Kolzig was named to Team Germany, along with prospect Jan Benda. And later on, Sergei Gonchar would be named to Team Russia. How happy were you for those guys when they were named to their respective Olympic squads?
Yeah, I mean it's awesome. Anytime you see your teammates, getting to play for their country, it's a special thing. I mean, I got to play World Juniors, I played World Championships, I played World Cup. It's an honor anytime you can wear your country sweater. So obviously, I understand the pride, especially for those guys to be able to get to do it. It's a pretty special thing.
So for Wilson, he had the Team USA hotel trashing incident, while Bondra and Kolzig's teams were eliminated before they even arrived to Nagano. And Zednik never got to play as a result of that as well because of the IIHF rules with the Olympics. How disappointed were you with how things went down for Wilson, Bondra, Zednik, and Kolzig?
Um, I, I don't even remember that, to be honest with you. I remember the USA thing. Obviously, I heard different stories about what all went down with that, and obviously it was unfortunate that for any of that stuff to kind of happen. I mean, it was an honor for those guys to go, and it certainly wasn't the kind of impression they wanted to leave. So yeah, I don't really recall the rest that the other guys didn't get to play. I just remembered for me, I got to have a week off and go buy a house in Colorado and get ready for my first baby boy to arrive. So
So, just to throw this out there, in a consolation game, Germany played Slovakia. Zednik was sitting in the stands in street clothes. Bondra played and Kolzig played. Bondra got tossed out for fighting one of the German defenders right in front of Kolzig, and there's actually an article about Kolzig going like, "Do I help Bondra out? He's my teammate with the Caps, but he's my enemy in this game." So like you can kind of tell like there was a little bit of frustration because that was really all they got to play was like a consolation game at
yeah,
the end
I
of
was
the
gonna
night.
say I played with Bonsai for a long time. I don't ever think I saw his gloves come off or see him fight. So it must
Apparently
have been
he
something. Must
apparently
have been
he's
something.
apparently he's fought a few times in international competition. So um
All right.
back in the NHL,
Yeah.
March 8th, 1998, the Capitals acquired forward Esa Tikkanen from the Florida Panthers, and then on March 21st, the Capitals signed forward Brian Bellows. What was it like getting both Tikkanen and Bellows, and what did they add to the team dynamic and to the locker room?
I just think they're, obviously with Teak, it was he was a guy who had won Stanley Cups. So I mean, it was a guy that we could lean on and learn from and kind of go with. He always seemed to rise in those situations, and he did it for us. So and I would say the same with BB. I mean, BB was a guy that he was a proven scorer, a guy that could add a little more scoring punch, a little more depth to our lineup, and I think that's what he did. I mean, it's just to add a couple of veteran players at the deadline that weren't maybe going to be first liners, all the time, but they were definitely going to add to the mix for depth. I think that was a big part of it.
So at the end of the season, the Capitals set a new franchise record with 476 man games lost to injury. Dale Hunter and Adam Oates were the only two players to play all 82 games that season. How challenging was it that season knowing that the team had so many injuries? And I should note that you actually missed time at the end of the season due to fractured facial bones. So
Yeah,
you were part of that little injury bug there as well.
yeah. It's tough. It's one of those things. Playing in the NHL is a grind. It's a hard time. It's you need some luck. You need try to stay healthy as best you can. In my case, I got hit with a cross corner dump right in the face, and it broke three bones. I took I don't know how many stitches right to the side of my face, but I had a concussion and broken bones in my face and all that. So I know I was out for a few weeks. It happened to be timed out. That was pretty good that I got to be around for my son's birth down at Annapolis Medical Center. So that was kind of the only blessing of the whole thing. But for me personally, but yeah, it was just one of those deals that every team deals with adversity. Every team deals with man games lost. It's just how bad is it, and how much depth do you have to still be able to keep going.
Yeah. So after finishing the regular season with a 40, 30, and 12 record, and for the record, for those of you watching, the 12 is ties. There were no overtime losses at this point. The Capitals finished in fourth place in the Eastern Conference and faced the fifth place Boston Bruins in the Eastern Conference quarterfinals. Game three, one would probably consider a turning point for the Capitals after having a Tim Taylor overtime goal overturned due to his foot being in the crease. Joey Juneau then scored in overtime to give the Capitals the 2-1 series lead. How important was that game, especially with the team's history of failure in playoff overtime games?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a big difference for us that year. I think we had experienced some losses in overtime, and I think for us to get that first overtime win, I think carried us through. I mean, I feel like we had like maybe five or six overtime wins of our Stanley Cup run. I mean, I don't maybe it wasn't that many, but it seemed like we did better in overtime that year than we did in any other. So it's kind of a feeling of confidence to be able to get things done come overtime where it's everything's on the line. But yeah, I just for me, I just remember we were finding ways to win in overtime versus finding ways to lose. So it was pretty special for us.
And I should note you mentioned about the number of wins that playoff run. The team record was 5-2 in overtime in 97-98 playoffs.
There you go.
So once again, it took overtime to defeat the Bruins in Game Six, and this time it was Brian Bellows to score the game-winning goal to clinch the series for the Capitals to move on to the next round. What was it like to defeat the Bruins and move on to the second round, especially that this was, like, I believe the first time since 1990 that the Capitals had advanced to the second round? And it should also be noted that Brian Bellows scored the first goal and the last goal of the series for the Capitals in that series.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. I mean, to me, one of the hardest things people don't understand to get through the first round is a tough thing. Everyone is extra amped up. Everyone is fairly healthy at that point because the every other day playoff grind hasn't really hit them yet, where things start slowing down. So they're not finishing every check or trying to murk somebody on every shift. So that first round is a grind. And I hadn't made it past the first round in my, 3 years previous. I think we got eliminated whether in six or in seven, or we had overtimes, we had everything. So, obviously to get through the first round was pretty special. I think the other thing I remember from that was that I think seeds 1, 2, and 3 all got knocked out in the first round. So for us, all of a sudden now we're the top seed. So it was like a double win.
Yeah, and I was just about to mention that Ottawa knocked out the Montreal Canadiens and the Buffalo Sabres knocked out the Philadelphia Flyers, which were, and then actually no, I think Ottawa knocked out New Jersey. So you take
Yep,
out those top two teams of Philly and New Jersey out of the mix right away, and it definitely changes the game a little bit right there.
for sure.
Um, so then in the Eastern Conference semifinals, the Capitals faced the Ottawa Senators. The Senators were a much younger team, and goaltender Ron Tugnutt had the Capitals number all season. What was going through your minds when preparing for the Senators?
I think I remember Tugger being there. I feel like he played for us maybe the year before. So I think
He was
yeah,
part of the franchise at one point, but he
yeah, I
never
remember.
actually
So
played.
okay, so yeah, I mean, I remember having him as a teammate, and obviously sometimes you just hit high goaltenders. So for us, it was just about staying with the way we were playing then, and trying to build on confidence that way.
So to end the series, Olaf Kolzig had back-to-back shutouts to close out the Senators. How in awe were you guys of what Kolzig did in this series?
Yeah, I mean, he was phenomenal. I mean, like I said, he helped for myself personally to win a Calder Cup, in the American Hockey League where he was phenomenal. So I think he had that ability to rise to the challenge, and he definitely did that in that series. I mean, he was obviously the difference maker for us, and you have to have great goaltending usually to be able to advance.
Yeah, and one thing, the Capitals just recently released their Caps 50 moments about the 98 playoff run, and with some new interviews in there. And Kolzig said that after he gave up the hat trick to Daniel Alfredsson in game three, he just went in with the mentality of no one's scoring. I'm not giving them anything. So, um, so when you hear Kolzig say that, like 20 something years later, like I see that smile on your face. It just brings a little bit of pride to you, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's he's obviously a tremendous person. I think that's more of his inner monologue. He would never say that outwardly. That's not really him, and he was, never that way as a player. But obviously, a phenomenal teammate, fierce competitor. He was always, like I said, he was Godzilla for us. He was huge, and we were just excited to have him with us.
So, after defeating the Ottawa Senators, you moved on to the Eastern Conference Final for the first time since 1990. The Capitals took on the Buffalo Sabres, who were favored as the favorites due to goaltender Dominik Hasek, who had just won gold medal in Nagano with Czech Republic and was unanimous MVP of the league for that season as well. When preparing for the Sabres, what was going through your guys' minds, especially since this was the first time in 8 years the Capitals made it to the conference final?
I mean, obviously, when you're facing a goalie like Hasek, he's a tough test to try to solve. So for us, I think it was about more just playing our team game. I mean, they had a tough team, they had a skilled team, similar to us. So it was just kind of we knew it was gonna come down to overtimes and playing tight games and who can kind of finish in those tight moments.
After being shut out in game one by the Sabres, the Capitals became more aggressive, even getting to the point where Hasek threw his blocker at Peter Bondra after some accidental contact in the corner. How important was it to get under Hasek's skin? And I just saw that crack of a little smile when I mentioned Bondra and the accidental contact in the corner. So I knew you have something fun to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was just little anecdotes of guys. You gotta obviously respect a goalie, but you can't give them too much. You can't shoot from the wall, and you can't not get traffic to the front. No matter how good a goalie is, if you can make his life tougher by getting to the front, getting those kind of plays, I think that's part of the strategy, and that definitely was part of our strategy then.
Going into game three, the Capitals took over the series with a pair of goals from both Bondra and Richard Zednik. How important was it to win games three and four on the road in Buffalo?
Anytime you get road wins, I think it's their bonus games, especially in the playoffs. But it's a one game mentality. I think that's what I've learned over my career, and obviously even our team last year being able to win the Walter Cup. You gotta focus on one game and not get too far ahead or too far behind. If you're down two or you're up two, you still have to just focus on the game at hand. I think that was more our mentality than winning on the road. As a premium, it was just focus on each game and trying to do the best we could to get those games.
And one of the funny little facts about game three is that before the game, Bondra gave a little fib to Zednik claiming that the game was going to be aired live back home in Slovakia without even knowing if the game was going to be on back home in Slovakia. And well, it inspired Zednik to score two goals, especially since this was also his rookie season with the Capitals. So
Yeah, Zed was a special player. Obviously, he had a big shot and skill, and he's kind of streaky, a little bit like Bonsai. I mean, you get Bonsai hot. If he got one, there was a good chance he was getting two and three. So I think Zed was a similar player that when he got one, he got more hungry to try to get another one.
yeah, so the way I wrote this, I think you'll enjoy. Game six, overtime, the goal by Joey Juneau. How did it feel to see that goal happen, and what was that celebration like, both on the ice and in the locker room?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty special. I mean, obviously, the chance to go to the Stanley Cup Final is something that, as a player, you always dream about. Um, I remember the stuff on the ice, like trying to figure out if they were, if the captains wanted to touch the trophy or not. And then, obviously, when we came home, we had when we landed. That's probably one of the biggest things I remember was we had like a police escort back to Piney Orchard, and there was, a couple thousand fans there, and all that sort of thing. And then as a prank, I think one of the guys had propped up Dale Hunter's truck on some blocks, so he, maybe an inch off the ground. So he tried to get in his truck and drive away, and his truck wasn't going anywhere. So again, it was a fun team, a fun group, and just little things like that are stuff you remember.
You had mentioned Piney Orchard. What was it like celebrating with the fans at Piney Orchard Ice Rink after coming home from Buffalo? I do know from some of the photos that were seen in the Washington Post articles that I was using for research, that you guys were throwing hats into the crowd. Joe Riki coerced Tikkanen into taking his shirt off, his champion shirt off, and throw it to the crowd. What was that whole atmosphere like? What was that like for you
Yeah, it
guys?
was just different than anything we'd ever experienced. I mean, we were kind of like I would say a small market team that had great fans, but it wasn't the same as like an original six fan base and stuff like that. So for us to get that kind of support was just really special and really you know memorable, I guess I would say, just to be able to have it. That we really did have a ton of support, a ton of fans. I think we knew it, but still, like to see them all come out like in other cities where teams would advance and stuff. I mean, I know I won one round in the playoffs in Toronto, and you would have thought that we had won the Stanley Cup based on the people in the downtown area going crazy and all that sort of thing. So for us, it was pretty neat moment.
Going into game one of the Stanley Cup Final against Detroit, the Capitals were major underdogs. What was the atmosphere like in the locker room before playing in the first Stanley Cup Final game in franchise history?
I remember it, just being a lot. I mean, there was a lot of media. There's a lot of lead up to it. It seemed like there was a delay before the final started. It just kind of, I think we were ready to get to it, and there was a more time, to sit and think about, holy shit, we're in the finals, maybe that I would have liked. Um, but it was a thing, just kind of going through, trying to soak it all in, take it all in, but also, stay focused on trying to win hockey games.
In game one, Richard Zednik scored the lone goal in a 2-1 loss. How huge was it to see Richard Zednik score the first Stanley Cup final goal in franchise history?
Um, yeah, I mean it's good. I mean, obviously they were tight games. We knew they were a good team. They were defending Stanley Cup champions. So, I think that showed that first game that okay, we're okay. We can play with these guys. We belong here. That sort of thing.
So I'm throwing a bonus question in here because you had actually mentioned the birth of your son a little earlier. Um, in between games one and two, Brian Bellows actually left the team to go see his son Kiefer be born. The arrangements were made and paid for by Capitals owner Abe Pullen. What was it like to see the owner of the team taking care of a player like that and knowing he would do the same for you or for any of the other players?
Yeah, I mean it's great. I mean, I think just the support that given by ownership, it's just nice because as a player, that you're a commodity, and but there is that human element to it, and for BB to have to go back for the birth of his son is obviously something you don't want to miss if at all possible, but also you have a job to do. So we miss out as athletes on a lot of things, but obviously that's something that you certainly don't want to miss out on if you can avoid it.
Going into game two, the Capitals had their first lead in the series, and with a 2-goal lead in the third period, Esa missed a wide open net. As a result, the momentum shifted in the Red Wings' favor and came back to win 5-4 in overtime. How much did it hurt to see Tikkanen miss the empty net and then lose the game in overtime?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a real turning point. I think in the series, I think we had lost other game ones during the playoffs, so it wasn't that big a deal. But to lose that game too, especially when as I recall, we were in full control of the game. We were kind of dominating. I think maybe that would have made it 5-2, or I think that would have kind of put it out of reach. So it's just one of those things in hockey games. It happens. I mean, hockey's a game of momentum, and when you lose it, it kind of goes quickly. So I just remember that being a huge turning point, not only in that game but in the series as well. Just it was tough. Then we were like, okay, now we have a huge uphill battle.
Yeah. After losing game three in another close 1-goal game, the Capitals were routed in game four by the Red Wings to sweep the series and win their second consecutive Stanley Cup. How much did it hurt losing that game, being swept, and knowing that the season was officially over?
Yeah, I mean it's long. I mean the playoffs are a long grind. It's a long couple months of your summer that is just gone, and all the adulation and excitement and everything that you had all of a sudden just quickly is taken right out of your sails. So it was tough, but obviously you try to look back on it, remembering what it's about the ride, and that's certainly it was an exciting ride for us. Then it was just a tough way to go out.
What was it like to see the Red Wings bring out Vladimir Konstantinov, who was involved in that limousine accident the summer before after the Red Wings won their first cup of the back-to-back, onto the ice to have him be a part of their Stanley Cup celebration?
Yeah, I mean, I think that again, that brings in kind of the human element of it. That we are people, and we have things going on outside of just playing hockey. And I think that was a special moment, obviously, for their team to be able to bring one of their teammates out who was in, unfortunately, in that horrific accident, celebrating the year before. That was a moment where even all of us could say that's pretty awesome that they're getting to share it with him, and he's there with them. So again, that just brings a little more of the human element of it. That yes, we are fierce competitors, but still, we the human side of life and things going on.
Steve Eisman of the Red Wings was named the winner of the Conn Smythe Trophy as MVP of the playoffs. How strongly did you guys feel that it could have been Olaf Kolzig?
Um, it's just one of those things. I mean, Ole played great, but I don't think anybody's going to take it away from Stevie Y that he's a tremendous player and had a tremendous playoff. So, it's right that it goes to the winning team and someone on that team. So, obviously, kudos to him for it.
Yeah, and up to that point, there were 5 instances, I believe, of the losing team having a player win the Conn Smythe. Up to that
Yeah,
point, right there.
probably never in a sweep though.
Probably not in a sweep, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I have to go back and do more research on that one. One other thing that actually took place during the celebration was Ron Wilson actually stayed out on the bench and watched the celebration. Were there any other players that joined Wilson? Because obviously for Ron, it was big for him because his father and his uncle both won Stanley Cups with the Red Wings in the past. So this was like his one shot at the cup. So he took it in not just as a coach, but as a fan of hockey. Were any of you players also taking in the celebration a little bit, or were you just kind of more in the locker room, just kind of letting things sink in a little bit?
Yeah, I think I just remember being in the locker room. Obviously, I think we had seen Konstantinov come out a little bit, and we were there for obviously the handshake and that sort of thing. But then as they celebrated, I think we were all just going to be with each other because we had a great run, and obviously it was the end of that team, and we knew that team would never be together again like that. So
And then one other storyline that was going in was about Dale Hunter. He was in his 18th season, kind of near the end of his career. How important was for you guys to see Dale Hunter finally get to play in the Stanley Cup Final?
yeah, I mean it was awesome. Hunty was a warrior. He was an unbelievable leader, an unbelievable guy for our team. So it was obviously huge to see him, get a chance to win a cup. Something that he had never done. So, it's just one of those things that as a good teammate, you always want the best for each other.
And then last question for you. From start to finish, what were some of your greatest memories from the 1997-98 season?
I just think the number of players that we had come in and go out and injuries and just fighting through all the adversity and you know teams being counted out and then okay we're not counted out we're in it now teams dropped out ahead of us in the playoffs and then hey we could make a run here. It just it was just the excitement of that group. I think it was a unique group, a unique season, like you said, with as many man games as we had lost. Obviously, Ole stepping up. Me playing forward, playing D, all over the place. We had so many key contributors and just unbelievable teammates. I guess that's the biggest things I remember about it.
Any final thoughts on that team, or are you good?
I think we're good.
All right, cool. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, this is Ken Klee, defenseman of the Capitals. Spent 9 seasons with them, 570 games. That time I said the number of games right. And he is also currently the coach of the Minnesota Frost in the PWHL. So check out the Minnesota Frost games and the PWHL as a whole. Ken, thank you so much for this interview.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.